This is Jerill Vance with the Appalachian Heritage Woodshop, and I want to show you a little exercise that I created for my students to improve their hand cutting dovetail ability. I developed this when I was teaching woodworking to some prison inmates in the state of Kentucky. It works really good. There are three different steps to this: a beginner woodworker, intermediate woodworker, and an advanced woodworker. So you pick out whichever one you think you are and start there. And there's nothing wrong with doing all three, or starting with the intermediate and doing the intermediate and advanced at the same time. It doesn't matter. This exercise, or these three exercises, will help you hone your dovetail cutting skills by improving 5 different areas. They will ensure that you are able to cut a straight and a square line. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, when dovetails, you cut an angled line. It is true, you cut an angled line, but the line is still straight. From point A to point B has to be straight. If the line is wavy or arced, then your dovetails will not fit together tight. So you have to be able to cut a straight line, and of course that straight line can be on an angle, but it must be straight. And of course square is a big advantage also. So this exercise will help you improve that. It will also reduce your margin of error. Now that sounds kind of odd, but you need every advantage you can when you're hand cutting dovetails. So the best way to explain it is to think like a professional athlete. A professional athlete, a Major League Baseball player, when they are called up on deck, it used to be they would take 2 or 3 bats and they would practice swinging 2 or 3 bats. Well, they've since done away with that, and they've created a device called a donut, which slips over the bat and it weights the end of the bat. So now they have one bat that is heavier on the end than the bat they use during the game, and they practice with the heavy bat. A professional basketball player will practice with leg weights or ankle weights on, so they get used to jumping with extra weight on. So when they take the weights off, they can jump higher, quicker, faster. So in a game time, they're better. A track sprint athlete will practice with a device, a harness with a parachute drag on. So that forces him to lean forward, and it gives him more resistance. So when he takes that off, he has better form and less drag, so he can run faster. So as a woodworker, you need to reduce your margin of error. And the way you do that, whatever is the normal thickness that you use when you cut dovetails, such as 3/4 of an inch, then you practice with 1 inch. If you normally cut dovetails in an 1.5 inch thick material, then you practice with 2 inch. Okay? So that's the way we'll be doing this. For today, we're going to be using a 1/2 inch, and I recommend you start with 1/2 inch and work your way up. Another way this improves your hand cutting dovetail ability, it familiarizes you with the units of measure that you use. Now, if you use millimeters, then you become more familiar with millimeters. If you use inches, you become more familiar with that. Again, the best way to comprehend this is to think of a mechanic. A mechanic can look at a nut or a bolt and at a very quick glance immediately tell you that's 7/16, or that's 9/16, or that's 13 millimeters. They know, and that's from experience and from use. So as a woodworker, instead of continually relying on a ruler, you need to develop and hone your skill of being able to determine a specific size without a use of measurement. And that helps you in dovetails because it helps you cut them much faster. And if you want to cut them symmetrical or non-symmetrical, it's much easier that way. Another way this helps you improve your dovetail cutting skills is it allows you to see your improvement. These exercises are designed to be done on a regular basis. If you're a professional woodworker or a retired individual and you can go into the shop every day, then you go into the shop, conduct these exercises, which at first will take about 5 to 7 minutes, and after you've done them a few times, it'll take 3 to 5 minutes a day. After about 2 weeks, you can visually see your difference because you will have a history, you will have a record to look back on. You'll be able to look at what you cut on day 1, 2, or 3 and compare that to what you cut on day 10, 11, or 12, and you can visually see the difference. Another way this helps you in cutting your dovetails, it allows you to set a PR. That is a personal record. Most athletes, whatever their sport, they have a personal record. So instead of continually trying to beat the other athlete, they're pushing themselves to be better than they were the last time they competed. So as a woodworker, you need to think of it the same way. Don't compare your dovetails to a video. Don't compare your dovetails to a magazine. Don't compare your dovetails to the neighbor down the road. Compare your dovetails to your previous dovetails. Always improving. And if you're always improving, always challenging yourself, then you'll see the improvement. And I've come up with a way of being able to measure that so it is not subjective. It is a way of measuring it and being able to say, this is my personal record, and then you continually try to beat that. So those are the 5 ways that you'll be able to improve your hand cutting dovetails by doing these exercises. Again, there's 3 exercises, one for the beginner, one for the intermediate, and one for the advanced, okay? So now let's look at each one individually. All right, now for the advanced woodworker, this is a very simple exercise, and it may seem overly simplified, but if you use this on a regular basis, your hand cutting dovetail skills will greatly improve. Now, again, you need to start with a small piece of wood. I recommend 1/2 inch. It has to be hardwood, closed grain wood, and it's more critical for this step than it is for the beginner intermediate. And again, you should be able to work up to the thickness that is greater than whatever dovetail you normally cut. So if you normally cut a 3/4 inch dovetail, you want to work up to 1 inch. So what I'm going to do here is start right in the middle of the board. Find the middle, no marking, no measuring, it's all visual. So we're going to start in the middle of the board, and we're going to make a cut straight and square. Now when you're cutting, you need to pay attention to how the saw feels. When you're cutting a straight line, if it is perfectly straight, the saw will not bind. As you begin to cut, if you feel resistance, then the saw is starting to bind, then that means your cut is slowly going awry. So you need to be aware of that. So after you cut one line down, you're going to move over to the left a very small amount, a 1/16 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch. Try what is comfortable to you, and as you progress, you'll get thinner and thinner. So make a cut. And I want to cut straight and square, the full depth of my first cut. And then move over and do the same thing again. Now, as you can see, I've been going to the left. Now I've got to go to the right, because with dovetails, as you know, you always cut on the waist side of the line. So that means sometimes you're cutting on the left side of the line, sometimes you're cutting on the right side. So you need to practice both ways. So here I'm moving to the right. And What I'm doing here is cutting a straight and square line. And do it again. Once you've done that a couple of times, then you will see the advantage of using stock that is thicker than what you normally use for cutting dovetails. Okay, again, you want to look at it, you want to be critical and see where there's an opportunity for you to improve. So all of these lines should be parallel and should be the same thickness. This one right here is thicker than the others. So from my perspective, that one is off just a little bit. So you do that all the way across. And now you will see the advantage and why you have to use a closed grain hardwood. If you tried this in a softwood, these pieces would tear out. Pine would be real bad, poplar. So I recommend cherry or hard maple or some very hard, dense wood. Now that's one way of doing it for the advanced woodworker. Here's another way. Now you remember I said you need to improve your margin of error. And the way you improve your margin of error is by practicing with something that is more than what you normally use. So I showed you how to do that with square cuts. Well, some of your dovetails are cut at an angle. So again, no measuring, no marking, just using your hand and your eye. Put your saw down, find the halfway mark, and let's go at whatever angle you cut your dovetails at. We're going to cut an angle here. And then we're going to do the same thing. Cut a parallel line right beside it, the same depth. And again, once you've done your left side, then you need to do your right side. And it's to your advantage. It's to your advantage to do this all the way across the board. But for time, I'm only going to do 5 right there. Now you can see the lines are nice and parallel. This one right here is a little bit fatter than the rest of them. But the other thing you need to look at, now instead of a square line, you've got your angle. Now look at these angles, and you can see this one is a little bit wider than it is here. This one's nice, this one's nice, this one's not bad. And you can see that because your eye is extremely accurate when it has a reference, and the lines, the curves that you just cut are your reference. So you do this all the way across. And again, if you want to, you can very easily write the date on there, cut it off, set that aside, and keep it for a record. And after about 2 weeks, you'll be able to look at it and you can see the improvement. Here's another option on the advanced exercise. Previously, I had you start right in the middle. This way, this exercise, you start on the edge. So what you want to do, again, no measuring tool, no marking tool. Come in a very small amount. And what you want to do is cut a line parallel and square down. I'm going to come over and do the same thing. And you should be able to do several of these fairly quickly. Now, because with dovetails, you always cut on the waist side of the line, There will be times when you're cutting on the right side of the line, and there's times you'll be cutting on the left side of the line. So you need to get used to that. So here I cut on the right side of the edge. Here I'm going to cut on the left side of the edge. So once you've done that, several cuts, then again, this is the back side, I'm on the front side. Now you need to examine it, make sure they're parallel, make sure they're consistent. And here is where your PR or personal record comes in. Now there's several ways you can do that. You can take this over to the saw and cut it, or you can cut it with a handsaw, or you can just tear it off. Now what you do is you take these pieces and you get a set of calipers and you measure the thickness. You can also tell by measuring whether it is or is not parallel. Once you've done that, then that will set your PR. That'll set your personal record. You will continually try to get thinner and thinner and thinner without it breaking and with it still being consistent and parallel. Once you've done that, then you'll visually see your improvement. Great exercise for the experienced woodworker, the advanced woodworker. It helps you strengthen your hand-cutting dovetail ability. Remember, be proud of your Appalachian heritage.